All right, all right. And thank you for being here. Welcome to the Mentors panel. I am Rolo, I am your moderator. And with me, I have some wonderful mentors throughout Power Rangers history. They need no introduction, but we're going to do it anyway just for formalities. Sir, who are you and how, how, do, you, how do you mentor us?
My name is David Fielding, and I played Zordon. I was the I was the big blue floating head from season 1.
Hi, my name's Anne Marie, Princess Shayla from Power Rangers Wild Force, and I have a couple of my princesses here today representing. Thank you.
My name's Jeff Dolan, and I was Gosei in Megaforce and Super Megaforce. I was a sort of a six-sided golden floating head on a wall. So I was hung there by Da Vinci or something. Yeah. Thank you.
Woo! Yes. And we know with our mentors, they've been with us, they grow with us throughout the show, throughout the season. How was it seeing your Power Ranger counterparts just grow from the beginning of the season to the end, either off screen or on screen? What is it like to see just that personal character growth as a mentor figure?
Well, I think every season has a driving force behind it, and it's really nice to see the guidance that those forces do from episode to episode. I mean, it really all depends on the writing of the episodes, but the life that you guys bring to it and the advice that they give to the Rangers in every episode, it's really great to see that kind of stuff happen.
Awesome, awesome.
I guess to answer that question, the trust that was built from season 1 when I became their mentor throughout the seasons, the trust on both sides. And I think that's why it was important the episode where the princess did fight Toxica, because she showed not only her strength as a motherly figure, but also that she could protect herself when need be.
I was in a slightly unusual situation because I was cast quite late. They'd actually cast a local guy who had apparently had a falling out, and I got a last-minute phone call saying, "Can you come to the studio tomorrow?" And so I didn't, and I never had an offset relationship with the cast at all because I only interacted in the studio. So the first time I met them was in 2022 when I came here for the last Morphicon. Yeah. So it was interesting seeing them grow as characters. But I unfortunately didn't get the opportunity to see them grow as actors on set and see how they matured. But I distinctly remember the first scene when they came into the cave to learn that they were going to be Rangers, and that sort of complete shock and innocence of some of them and some of the confidence of others, and then seeing that grow as the season rolled on was great. And you got a real sense of achievement, especially getting to do it for 2 years. You got to build a real bond with that group. So yeah, on a performance level, as I say, not an actor level.
Hello.
You're welcome. More the merrier. Come on in.
And then talking about the show, just seeing your moments again on or off screen, was there a favorite moment of your character? You mentioned Princess Shayla's fight versus Toxica. With David and Jeffrey, what are your favorite moments throughout the season? What is like your most, I would say, impactful moment as a mentor?
Oh, impactful? See, I'm in a difficult situation here. Being from New Zealand, we never saw the show.
Really?
No. So I never got to see the series, and I never got to see full scripts or learn what the flow of the storyline was. So my memories of things are very brief scenes that I did, and I only got to see the lines I was speaking and the content that I had to do, with a little bit of showing the lead into it to give you some context and what you're going through, and then maybe you'll hear some of the results from the studio director would tell you some stuff. But I used to love the scenes with Tensu. They're just the funny little scenes when he'd screw up and bang into the walls and run around, and Gosei would get frustrated with them, and they were quite fun. It was sort of like you got to throw a bit of the comedy chops around as well. So yeah, it was that's the sort of it. But as I say, there were some really big fight moments that he had to come in and assist in inserting, use that card. You've got this new power, and they were always exciting scenes to be a part of.
And I'm sure it was kind of filmed out of order, so even some story beats were probably confusing a little bit.
By the time we had them, we were doing them chronologically. So we would start. Gosei was very different. So when I did Korag, the Korag did a lot more fighting, whereas Gosei was just purely the mentor character. So I everything was all done in order. So I got to see the flow of the scenes, and we'd do 2 or 3 episodes per recording session, and so you got to see a bit of the flow of the story going through. But so they were never non-sequential by the time I got them. So yeah.
And with Princess Shayla, you had an actually different experience because they did a lot more ADR after the fact, but you were really physically with the Rangers. So was there any moments from that really highlighted, like I said, the mentor aspect of it, maybe within the character or even one of your fellow cast members?
Right. Yes, we were together most of the time on the Animarium, or it seemed like the princess would get kidnapped a lot, so we did a lot of location. But I think the thing that I loved most about our relationship is it wasn't as much a motherly type, it was like a big sister.
Okay.
And so actually, some of you may have known, they actually cast a different princess to start the show. I had auditioned for the Yellow Ranger and Toxica. So they filmed like 3 or 4 episodes with the other princess. So when I came in, it was kind of the same thing. I was playing catch up. So when I got on set, the actors were like, who's this person? Where's our friend that we've been filming with, right? So it took some time for them to warm up to me. But by the end, still to this day, we're dear, dear friends. And I still feel that motherly or that big sister kind of vibe towards them.
Do you remember when in the show's production that you came in and did that actual, I would say, transfer over from the original Princess Shayla to where you were? Like how deep into development were they once you got introduced?
I think they were like, usually we shoot 3 episodes every 2 weeks, like within 2 weeks. So I know they had shot, we're in their 4th or 5th episode.
Okay.
So they kept all the footage with just the Rangers. So when I was called on a Thursday that I booked it, I flew to LA, and by Monday I just started making up time. So at first I didn't have time to really understand what was going on, my character or anything. It was just like they handed me 5 scripts and we just knocked them out that week. But then after that, I could get a better vision. At first, it was just like, okay, let me remember my lines. She was an extremely easy character for me because, I kind of am the princess and she is me to a degree, that motherly figure. So to go in there, I just, to put on this dress and to be a princess, it was very easy to, personify, Princess Shayla.
Right on. And David, being obviously coming from MMPR, the original, the start, your fellow mentors didn't have a foundation, had the foundation of previous mentors, but you actually didn't because you were the original. You started it off. So what was it like building that character? What were some descriptions or some stuff that you brought to the role with that, being the original?
There wasn't a whole lot of build-up. When the only description I was given was that you're a 10,000-year-old wizard trapped in a time warp. And so, because the scripts were really light on backstory, there was no real sort of foundation for what this character was. He was just basically a device for exposition. He was going to tell them what was going to happen and how they should go about it. So I understood right away that it was basically just an information portal to bridge between action scenes. And but based on my theater training and my background and loving that type of fiction, growing up watching Ultraman and all the different kaiju movies and just understanding the basics of what the storyline was, it was very easy to slip into this sort of larger than life, big voice character that would shepherd people, through typical times. So I found it to be very easy to adopt a father-like authoritative guiding force, and it was just a lot of fun.
And did you have many interactions with the Rangers during production, or was it the same case with the ADR
No,
after
I mean,
that?
because they were moving at a meteoric pace, I think they were doing like 3 or 4 episodes every 2 weeks.
Wow.
So they were pushing it really fast. And other than the time that I was filmed for the pilot, I was never on set with them ever again. I met them once, and then I didn't meet them again for another 21 years. So again, like your experience, I would go to the recording booth, and I would be handing these lines, and again, having another robotic companion that would just bump into things and break things. And, I was just, surprised that, okay, well, what monster are we fighting this week? A giant purse? Okay, great, fantastic. and you just do the best that you can, and you do your bit, and then you go home, and then you wait for the next phone call after 6 weeks or whatever. So, yeah.
And you mentioned Ultraman, and obviously, we all know the story of Power Rangers coming over from Japan. Did you ever get to see or watch any of your Sentai counterparts and even their mentors, and took any inspiration for any future roles that you took on after the fact?
I mean, I saw some of the Zoo Ranger stuff after the fact, many years after the fact, because after I left LA, I sort of forgot about what was going on. And it wasn't until Facebook came along and I started getting messages from people about asking me if I was that actor that played that part. And I was like, yeah, whatever happened to that show? And then, come to find out, oh, wow, it's still going on. That's great. Fantastic. But yeah, I mean, because I was a fan of that kind of thing when I was in high school and stuff, I forget the question.
Did you see your Japanese counterpart, the Super Sentai counterpart of you, and then did you take any influence for him in a future role that you might have done?
Oh no, not at all. I mean, because I had probably far too much theater training, stage work, trying to take inspiration from something like that is, or at least for me, is like, okay, well, I want to do something different. I don't want to copy that, and I appreciated the work that was done. And of course, anything that you absorb does inform you on some level. But I tried to take whatever information I had gathered over the years to try to craft something different. So that's what I tried to do.
It's a similar thing with. So I started on the stage as well, and I never did drama school. Like, we only had one drama school in New Zealand at the time, and when I went and met with them, it sort of worked out pretty quickly that we wouldn't get on. So I learned on the boards, as they say, and same like with David saying, I watched and learned from more successful and long-term professionals, and sort of picked and chose the bits that I could utilise and that I thought would work for me, and left behind the stuff that I thought was a bit of nonsense or a bit of OTT, sort of over-the-top sort of stuff. And that's the way you do most stuff. You absorb what you want to absorb, reject the rest, and then use the rest of your own talent to then create whatever character or role you might be thrown into. And especially with voice work, you really have to do that, because you have to convey so much more just with the voice as opposed to the physicality and the emotion. Yeah, much shorter amount of time. Yeah.
And then I'm sure it's kind of hard, especially from the voice acting standpoint, or even the in-person, just that feedback. The hard part about the voice acting is that you usually would like someone to bounce off of you to kind of give you a little bit of a direction. In terms of the script, were there any notes in particular that you were shocked about your character doing or saying, or anything that came as a shock to that season that you kind of operated in?
Again, because it's so long ago now, you sort of forget those really. I know the relationship with my in-studio director was really strong and really good, and helped flesh out things for me. And because he had a far deeper knowledge of the stories, he'd read all the scripts, he knew where the story was going. He could give you some really good guidance when you might be feeling a bit lost as to, why am I saying this? Where's this coming from? This seems a bit out of context for me. And so getting that feedback from them was really vital to help you put the right energy and intention into the lines. So I wouldn't say there's any particular one that made me shocked, but there was just times that you sort of went, yeah, I need your help here, and thank God you're here, because I'd be a bit lost if you weren't. So yeah, it's sort of the flow of it.
And then, speaking obviously of your experience on the Animarium, again with your Ranger counterparts, was there anything that was a shock to your character or their characters that happened throughout the season, like you wasn't aware, or maybe like a completely shocking moment?
I don't know if I was ever shocked because, like I said, I kind of came in and had to learn on the fly. But one thing I did notice is my character or choices that I made for the princess. I seemed to just get in trouble a lot, and I needed a lot of help, and so, which in life, it's good to seek out help from people, but there are times when you need to be able to stand up and take care of yourself. So I remember having a conversation with the director, and I asked him, I said, do you think it's possible that the princess can be in a fight scene? Like that there can be a moment to where she has to take care of herself to show that other side of her and her strength. And he said, let's do it. And that's when they created with Toxica.
So they just created that specific scene.
So what
just
I've heard,
based-
because at the time he didn't have a fight scene scheduled for the princess. Like I was around fight scenes, but I never fought myself. So, and there was no one there to protect me, so I had to protect myself, with her. So I guess that was the biggest thing is I started feeling that my character started become very needy. And so I kind of wanted to show that other side, just like a mother, that strength to when we need to be, the mama bear can come out, and take care of business.
Absolutely, absolutely. And was there any unique circumstances, or let me rephrase a little bit. Is there anything that you would have liked to seen with your character after the fact, maybe after the recordings, or maybe after you watched the footage of your show years later? Was there anything that you thought of that was like, dang, I wish I could have did that, and maybe changed maybe either this character dynamic or development on this character? Specifically, even with the voice acting, would you have preferred that your character took up a physical form of anything like that? Again, mentioning that the inclusion of the Princess Shayla fight that wasn't there previously.
I think it's not really an influence that we have within it. You've got a whole creative team way down the line before it even gets to you, that it goes through that process, and they pretty much know where they want to take things, and it's your job as the actor to produce that for them and help them. There are times when you can put your own intention into what's being said, but if they're not happy with it, they'll come back and ask you to redo it. And I think it's great that you had that opportunity to put that creative input into it. But being an on-set character, kind of you have that opportunity, whereas we're doing stuff that's being filmed probably a couple of months beforehand because we're well into the edit stage by the time that we're seeing things. Or that I was anyway. Stuff had been filmed several months earlier and they were well into the edit. It was just now throwing the voices on and doing the finish. So it'd be a nice thought, but the opportunity isn't really there to have that creative input or content change. So you just have to trust they've got what they wanted and that the director gave you the right information and that you produced the right energy and attitude for them.
That's a good point. I mean, that is our job as actors, And I, especially now looking back at the show, they did a phenomenal job, in every aspect, and that's why it's been so popular. So yes, to have that moment with the director, but our job as the actor is to portray what is written, what the writer has written, and. So for me personally, it was a beautiful season, and it was super easy because of the writing and the cast and the crew together. And that's why they are so popular.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. The longevity of the show speaks to how well it has been done. Some people may think it's cheesy and it's just a kids' show and stuff like that. But the fact it's been around for 30-odd years now, it speaks massively to how well the production teams have done and the creatives have done with it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was very, very lucky, very fortunate because I was sort of like the right guy at the right place at the right time. I had just moved to LA, and 2 months later, I got cast in this part for this kids' TV show.
Wow.
And so it seemed like a great thing at the time, but I learned later on that it was not what I thought it was going to be because I came out and I wanted to do more on-camera work. I wanted to be in front of the camera, but then I also got to learn a different skill set as far as like becoming a voice actor. Uh, but as far as wanting something else for the character, again, we're not in charge of any of that. We have no, at least at that time, I had no input about what was going to happen with the character or where they were going to go or anything like that. So, I mean, after the fact, you would like to see, well, would it have been nice if Zordon had come out of the tube at some point? But I think one of the strengths of the character of Zordon, and this might apply to Gosei as well, is that these are guiding forces. They were supportive of what the Rangers are doing, and that I think is their strength in the fact that they couldn't physically help. And it was their job to sort of encourage people and say, no, it's okay, you can do this, you've got this. And I think that's a really important lesson for kids who are 5, 6, 7 years old, to sort of like be able to stand up to themselves. And so I think that was the strength of the character. From an actor standpoint, of course, it would have been better if I'd been able to add more to the character, you know, by coming outside of the tube. But I don't think they ever had any plans for that because there was no toy for Zordon. So there was no reason to promote the character in that way because there wasn't anything that they could market. And I'm saying that not in a derogatory way because, I mean, when you really look at it, the show was a commercial for toys, and that was fine. That was perfectly great. And that's what helps promote the success of the show is that when you look at other products like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or the Transformers, those shows went on the air, the cartoons were on the air, but the kids had to wait 6 to 8 months before those toys were in the store. When our first episode was on the air, the toys were already there. They had them in their hands when they were watching the show. So it made it that much more real, that much more accessible. And yeah, it would have been nice if there had been something like that to help, again, lend more backstory to the character rather than just being sort of like this cardboard information delivering device. But it is what it is. We did what we could. So.
Yeah, it's an interesting aspect for Gosei, at least you guys visually were your faces were faces. I think when I come next time, I'm going to have to put a sort of a six-sided figure around my head so that people know who I am, because I get a lot of people walk past and go, oh, hi, and I go, hi, how you going? And they go, I know that voice. Where'd that voice come from? So, yeah, the recognition factor is sort of a different level.
Yes, so our very own Princess Shayla, my apologies, has to leave. She has to go do a photo op. But thank you so much. We really do appreciate this. And again, thank you again for being part of this franchise. As a fan, as a consumer, we really appreciate y'all coming out here and
Thank you.
enjoying our
And
presence.
I feel blessed to be a mentor in the middle
Yes,
of
absolutely.
these two. And I know they will take very good care of you for the rest of this. And I'll see y'all later.
If you've
And
got any questions for her, we'll answer them for her. We'll just make up some answers.
And then now, talking about Power Rangers, again, you talked about the longevity aspect. And it's funny that, you know, all three of you were here because you're all at different points in the show, with yourself being the star, her being the middle, and then you going towards close to the end. What did you know at the time? And then obviously, as the show came to your end, it was already pretty established and pretty developed. But the inception of Power Rangers, was that a complete shock? Were you shocked that it had that longevity piece going so long? Like, what was that like, just hearing about Power Rangers from the initial and then also hearing that it's continued on for 30 years?
I mean, when I was first on the show and first got cast and they explained what it was, I understood the concept right away. I mean, because I had watched Ultraman and Battle for the Planets and understood the whole thing. But at the time, I thought, okay, well, this is going to be a Saturday morning cartoon thing that'll last about a year, and then it'll be replaced by something else, because that was my experience growing up. Every year, you would have something new come on television, and it would just replace, and that was sort of the norm. And again, not being privy of what the business plan was, or having any sort of clue about how popular those toys were going to be, no idea until much later, around Christmas time, when I was in a mall shopping for gifts and stuff, and why is everybody gathering at KB Toys? What's the big toy this year? Oh, it's a playset with my face. I'll never see a dime. Okay, fantastic. But yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I got a real surprise when I was because the merchandising side of things, because it's not played in New Zealand and we don't have the merchandising. There is a sort of probably a niche awareness of it from people that are involved with the show. So I'd never seen any of the merchandising. Then one day I was in Dubai, wandering around a mall in Dubai, and I walked into this toy store and there was this meter-high Red Ranger, and I was like, "What the hell? And where's this come from?" And all of a sudden I started hearing more and more about these things. And it's say 2 years ago when I came over here was the first time I'd seen any sort of Gosei or Koreg merchandise around the place too, and it was like, wow, this is pretty cool. This is just a side of the business that we weren't aware of and didn't know was really existing. Then we started hearing about Martel and all the rest of it, and then Hasbro, and then you go, okay, getting to understand what we were at now too. Because as I say, the toys were a big part of things when we were younger, but I had no concept when we were doing the show that was a part of what we were involved with. So it's quite cool.
And it's interesting on your end because around your season, it was actually the 20th anniversary. So there was a big marketing push here in the U.S.
Right.
And then here in the U.S., we have like a Macy's Day Parade, and we brought out like every Power Ranger out for this parade. And again, a big marketing push. Wow. Even the morphers and stuff had every individual Ranger, not just specific to that show. So again, it's an interesting thing to hear because obviously, with being in New Zealand, you didn't see the show as it was being aired and the big marketing push. And then with you, David, seeing it years later and seeing how the longevity piece of it kept going.
Speaking to the longevity, I mean, I think there's something about Power Rangers that's mythical in some ways because it has a lot of the same tropes that are used in myths that help guide us throughout our lives, as far as like the hero taking on the mantle of the hero, accepting the responsibility to fight the battles that nobody else can fight. I mean, it's the same thing like with King Arthur, the common man drawing the sword from the stone and becoming the hero. That's exactly what helps propel Power Rangers from year to year. It's somebody who sees, oh, I'm common just like Jason or Tommy or Billy, and I could be one of those people, and that's part of the inspiration of the show, not just the marketing of the toys, but I think it speaks to something that all of us understand intrinsically from a storytelling point of view, that's me up there, I could be that kind of thing. So I think that also adds to the longevity.
Yeah, I was being interviewed when I became first aware of how big this franchise was, because as I say, we weren't, prior to COVID, I had no awareness of how huge it was in America or anywhere else. And then during COVID, started getting contacted by various fan groups wanting to do online interviews because the conventions had stopped. I got interviewed by these two guys in New York one day, and I'd done 3 or 4 of them, and I was getting asked the same questions quite regularly, and that was cool. But I decided to spin it back one day, and I just said to them, I said, "What is it that made you watch this show?" And the guy that I was being interviewed said to me, "It was the first time I'd ever seen a black guy as a hero." And I just went, wow, that's a massive cultural change. And he said, I was 8 years old, black man living in New York, and all of a sudden there's a black guy on television as a hero. And he said, that just blew me away. And he says, it's been life for life.
And not perpetuating any stereotypes or nothing. He was just a hero.
Yeah, just a hero, yeah. But as he said, he'd never seen someone of his colour as a hero before.
Really?
And it made him think, I can be a hero. And I just went, wow, that's powerful, man. That's really powerful.
That's actually similar to how I got started.
Cool.
So when I was the season right before yours for Mystic Force was SPD. Yeah. So when I started watching Power Rangers, it was the same concept. The Red Ranger was a black man, so that was kind of like my driving force into getting into Power Rangers.
That was something that I thought was very unique about MMPR too. It was a very diverse cast. We had Walter and Twee and so I think it was sort of promoting that sort of we're all in this together.
Yeah.
So I thought that was terrific.
And Power Rangers also promotes again like LGBTQ plus with obviously multicolored. And later on we ended up having one of the first Rangers who was like an actual confirmed on the show LGBTQ member. So it's just interesting to see how I guess the dynamic change from the 90s into the 2000s and the growth that it had throughout the decades almost because
Yeah,
of,
I don't think you can undercut how powerful it is to see yourself in something else, and that's really great. So.
and then speaking on that, we have a lot of content creators and a lot of fan projects throughout Power Rangers, and you both interacted with two very prominent ones, one being Unworthy and then also being Chris Quintana. How was that finding out that there are fans that are creating these fan projects to help pioneer the brand as just like Power Rangers did on air?
Well, for me, I mean, that's the most wonderful thing about being associated with the show is because it has had such a positive effect on everybody that comes in contact with it and how it inspires them to either be heroic in their real life, either go on to become an EMT or to join the armed services or to be of service to their community, and also to inspire them to tell their own stories in their own way. I think it just keeps rippling outward and creating more and more of that, and I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, it was a real surprise for me, as I say, when I started doing the interviews and started looking into a few of these groups that were talking to me and the projects that they were doing themselves. And I think it's a bit of genius by the production companies not to shut them down and just let them have that fan fiction side of things and let it perpetuate the series. It all supports the whole main brand. And so I was stunned to see that some of these, like one of the groups I looked at, some of the stuff they produce, their own scripts and their own filming and editing and special effects and their own shows, get over 1 million views online. And it's like, really? Wow, that's just absolute. Now, some TV shows don't get 1 million people watching them, you know. So yeah, I think it's just stunning that's how I think it's part of why it has perpetuated as well. Why it has had that longevity is because of that sort of real personal close connection to it and their desire to have their say in it, put forward their piece of creativity through it. So yeah, I reckon it's amazing.
It's almost like our way of giving back to y'all who inspired us, right? Because you gave us that drive to want to create and do more, and in return we created and we took our inspirations, and you guys who have motivated us throughout the years to create these projects and make us feel like we can be Rangers.
Manifesting your dreams, making your dreams come true. That's what it's all about.
And was there so now that the con scene is open, now that we're past COVID, was there any fan interactions or something that stuck out to you? Maybe that a fan came up to you and said that you saved them during a rough time, or anything within Power Rangers that kind of again added to this show really means something. This means a lot to many people and just our community overall.
I did my first convention in 2011, and that was the first time being seated on stage and taking questions from the audience and understanding how it impacted them and how it got them through dark times, whether they were bullied at school or they had a difficult home life. And it really sort of, it was very humbling to understand that something that I felt was small in a way. I felt that my contribution was small to the show, but understanding that it was much bigger than that. And that's always such a humbling and leaves you with a very full heart, knowing that something you did had an impact. And any interaction I have with somebody at the con table or after a panel or whatever is special, because I try to be respectful of their experience and try to live up to what the character was for them. This empathetic guiding force, and so I try to manifest that in my own.
Yeah, no, that's sort of ditto on what David said, and it struck me. I only did my first convention, it's only the second one I've done, so 22 was my first, and it's just a long way to come. So I don't mind doing it, but the cost for the promoters is sometimes a bit prohibitive. So, but it's just a regular feeling that you get all the way through, that you understand now that this little thing we did has had a major impact on people, and they tell you that they've been doing it since they were watching it since they were kids, and they still watch it and they still replay things, and they have their favourite seasons and favourite characters, and they know the shows inside out. And also the beautiful part yesterday, I met this couple, older couple with their 3 kids, probably all under 10 years old, and they're sharing that experience with them now. The kids are halfway through. Last night they were watching the last 2 episodes of Mystic Force.
Really?
Yeah. And these are young kids, and they came and had a photo with us yesterday, and so it's become a real family sharing experience. That if the parents were that into it and they believe it's that good a show that they can share it with their kids at that age as well, I just think that's an extraordinary step in the show's sort of connection and reason for being, really. And pretty cool.
And again, it's been like a generational thing, right? You start seeing that, right? The kids who are watching Power Rangers back then are now having kids themselves and introducing Power Rangers to the youth. So again, it keeps on with that history, that lore, what the franchise has built over 30 years.
I saw the thing that kind of always surprised me. It gives me a giggle because I just think it's so fantastic. Even watching, you're used to seeing sort of younger people getting into it and getting into the cosplay. But yesterday, the number of couples in their 50s and possibly 60s in full suits and all the kit, and I was just going, that is cool, man. You are committed. That is awesome. So I love it.
Yeah, cosplay's pretty interesting. You get some creative ones. I know with you, David, some people like to paint their faces. They got the little command center on display, and then with you yourself, like with Gosei or even Korag. So even I want to elaborate on that a little bit, because Korag wasn't really a mentor figure, but he did have mentor traits as he started having his character development. Was there anything with that kind of screamed mentor to you with that, or maybe even something that you applied from that into Gosei?
I think so. Korag was Korag right through until he transitioned across to Solaris, and I think the mentorship came more out of Solaris, but I think Korag had that mentorship within him, and I think that's what kept him honourable within his battles. That he just knew there was this side of him that was supposed to be helping, not crushing. And so that was always a guiding force for Korag, that he had that restriction, he had that limit, he had his bounds and of that decency that he wouldn't cross the line. And I think that came out once he transitioned to Solaris. I was a bit disappointed I didn't get to play that character myself, as I'd been the voice for the previous 6 months. Would have been nice to transition to the visual one, but that's just history. But I think that more came through with the Solaris Knight rather than Korag.
And just speaking on the voice acting aspect, is that something that you would prefer to stay in, or would you like to do more hands-on, more physicality, more
in New Zealand, you can't specialise. It's too small an industry, so I do a lot of different stuff, fingers and a lot of pies, as they say. So I do a lot of voice work still, but I still do a lot of stage work. I haven't done anything for a couple of years now. Do a lot of television. I've got a TV show coming on in New Zealand soon. It's actually on streaming over here at the moment. I watched an episode the other day. I found that surprising. I could watch it in America before I could watch it in New Zealand. But I do a lot of film work. There's a lot of American production done down in Auckland, especially. Jason Momoa has been down there a bit lately, and Dwayne the Rock's been coming in and having fun there too. They love it. Big followers of the All Blacks rugby team, my national team. And so I've been doing a bit of. I filmed some Sweet Tooth a couple of years ago, and Our Flag Means Death with Taika Waititi last year as well. And so there's a continual roll of stuff. The COVID has definitely affected what was my main career, which was corporate entertainment. I kind of evolved into an MC and singer and awards night MC host, and COVID's definitely killed that industry in New Zealand for the time being. The food and beverage market just can't manage big events now, so I've had to diversify a little bit. I'm actually a private investigator now, so sort of taking things a completely left field from the acting side of things. I get to act in the field. So yeah, very different.
And then David, with you in voice acting, how has that progressed over the years? Again, is that a field that you would like to stay in, or is this something you would like to branch out and do more?
Well, I've kind of moved away from it. I mean, once I left LA, I got to do voices for video games, and I worked in the video game industry for a good decade. But I do a lot of creative writing these days, publishing my own novels and stuff like that. So that's where I'm concentrated right now. So.
Very cool, very cool.
We got any questions?
Yeah, and I think we reached that point where we are going to do some questions. Do we have any fan questions? Yes, sir. Yes. Are you familiar with the fan theory about that?
I know there is some theory around it. I haven't had a huge explanation around it. I'm not totally aware of the full fan theory, but I know I took on the fact that Zordon was definitely a guiding force for me, and I was like an apprentice or a protege of Zordon, and so that was definitely part of my information that I received from directors and from the production leading into it. Yeah. I don't know whether he made me or not, but yeah, it's quite possible.
I mean, the physical, visual similarity between the characters is there. I mean, Gosai is a face, and Zordon was a big, huge face, and they both had robotic companions. So I think that was sort of the inspiration that they went with for that. So that's probably where that came from.
And then you said you had a second question, or?
I would love for them to do an animated version of the Shattered Grid stuff.
Okay.
Going into the background of Zordon, I think that would be fantastic because that way they could bring us all back to do the voice work for it. I myself am not very comfortable doing things on camera, and I don't think I look anything like Zordon from the comics. So I think it would be very hard for me to squeeze into anything like that. But from an animated standpoint, I think that would be great. I think I would love to see something like that.
And would you come back if the role was offered to you 30 years later?
Yeah, depending on what the contract was and all that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I would love to get a chance to reprise the character again. That would be awesome.
All right, awesome. And then do we have another question in the audience? Yes, right there.
Is that the 95 movie you're talking about? They had called me. I had left LA shortly after the show went on the air. So I did the voice for the first 31 episodes. And then Robert Manahan took over. They continued to use my face throughout the life of the character. But I was living on the East Coast. And I got a phone call. They wanted to know where I was and what my availability was because they were ramping up to do the movie. And that was when they were still planning to shoot it in LA. And I could have flown out to LA and done that. But when they decided to save money and film it in Australia, they just went a completely different direction, cast somebody else. And so that's why Zordon in the movie doesn't look like Zordon from the TV show. And it was Nicholas Bell that was lying there on the crystals or whatever. So I was never really sort of approached or given the opportunity to do anything with that. So. No, I mean, it was... when I was on the show, it was a non-union show. It was a non-union show for a long time. And it was a non-union film that they did in Australia. So I don't think the guys got residuals for the film. You may talk to them. They may have a better understanding of all that. But
Yeah,
that's a whole nother ball of wax.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like when I did my first call was to do all when I said how I got the late call, can you get into the studio tomorrow? Basically, that was to record the lines for the toy, for the wrist. I think it was the wrist band, and I had 500 cues. I did in red, yellow, Rangers, and I just got paid a session fee for that, and that was it. So there's no residuals, no rollovers with these shows. So yeah.
Are there any more questions coming up? Yes, sir.
As I say, I never saw any toys until I got here 2 years ago. So yeah, no, we had all I had for reference was the TV screen in front of me with the scene playing. So they'd play sort of, if it was necessary, they'd play a minute or two leading into it to give you the flow of what was happening, and then you come in on the beeps, your cues, and they give you 3 sort of beeps to cue you in for where you start talking, and that was all we had, and then director to interact with there. So yeah, the toys were never part of our life. No.
Yeah, the sessions are generally very tightly run because they're on a time schedule or whatever. And so messing up a line here and there, I mean, it can get very frustrating for the engineer to like, okay, let's take that again. And what they really appreciated for us was that we were able to get in there and do it cleanly as quickly as possible, and they really appreciated that. But of course, as time goes on and you get more and more comfortable with the engineers, you are able to sort of, have a couple of throwaway lines, and when the mic is on, but you're not actually recording and seeing Alpha bounce around the command center and sparks are flying, and you just have the tendency to go, idiots, I'm surrounded by idiots. That's on the cutting room floor somewhere, but I mean, we try to keep things tight because time is money and they're on a schedule and stuff like that.
Yeah. Gosse was, recording-wise, was a fairly easy record because I had a minimum 5-hour call. Now, for Corag, that was 5 hours was needed for all the Corag stuff. Corag didn't say very much, so we'd record the 2 or 3 episodes we were recording in that session. We'd record all the dialogue first, and then I'd go back and we'd start recording all the fight sequencing. And he fought a lot. And I'd spend 3 or 4 hours doing fight sequencing. I'd come out of the studio sweating because you physicalize it while you're doing it, so you feel like you're getting the actions right and the support for your voice. And so that was 5-hour sessions, and I'd walk out of there with my voice just ripped to pieces because you were going, and 5 hours of that just kills you. Whereas Gosse spoke, again, a little bit more than Corag, but he didn't fight. So most of my Gosse sessions were done in under an hour. And so it was like a makeup for having done Corag and had my voice ruined for about a year to, Yeah, you'd do 2 or 3 episodes in one session, yeah. Because as I say, I came in when they were getting close to finishing off the edit. So they'd record us, they'd clean our voices up, they'd put effect on if they needed to, and then it would be colour finished and see you later, done.
And then we have time for one more question before we have to wrap up. Is there anyone out there? There we go.
Yeah.
Again, I think that's all dependent on who's writing the episode or who's coming up with the backstory for that. But well, I think very, very much like the comics, Zordon would try to talk sense to Rita and say, hey, let's do this, and I think that's the same tactic that I would have taken was, okay, if we're going to work together, we need to do this in this way and sort of try to guide them and then watch it all go to chaos. And
Yeah,
go, okay.
I mean, an evil character is going to ultimately want the worst outcome, whereas the good character or the mentor characters are going to want to try and work a solution. And so if they had to work with the bad guys to get a good result, then that would be something that they would do. And then face the consequences once they've given it their best shot. Yeah. All right, okay. Cool.
And I think that we reached the end of the panel. Again, thank you so much. And again, like I said earlier, speaking as a fan and a consumer and just an overall just love and admiration for the fandom. I mean, listen, the Power Rangers is obviously, the Rangers themselves, but the mentors, those are what gives us the other side of the inspiration, the driving force of what we do. So again, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for just being a part of this fandom. And thank you so much. Yeah. And again, one more round of applause for our wonderful mentors. And thank you so much, and enjoy the con.
If you haven't been past my booth, come and see me at 3:10, and I've got a little special gift this afternoon for the first 8 people that come through and grab a combo. You're going to get a bonus gift from me, so come and see me and say good day and have a chat, and we can, if you've got some more questions, happy to answer them there. Cheers.
And there you go. Thank you so much.